This is one is iconic Indian, and second is the Seiko watch. And they have sponsored this event and they have presented this event. And we have always been seeing these amazing watches since 1881. So a big round of applause for Seiko as well. Thank you so much. So now is the time for Mr. Kapish Mehra to come over here.
Thank you. Very good evening to, first of all, the Honorable Chief Guest of the evening, Dr. Kiran Bedi, authors Sanjeev Sanyal, Rajesh Singh, families of iconic Indians who have been featured in the book, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, friends from the media. It's a matter of privilege and honor for us to publish a book like this in a year like this with authors like these. 75 iconic Indians is by no measure an easy task. At the beginning, it may seem to just drop a list of 75 people. But I can say to you, ladies and gentlemen, that from behind the scenes, trimming it down to 75 is the real task. And we must give credit to Sanjeev and Rajesh for having performed this task brilliantly. So congratulations to both of them. This is a fascinating selection. While there will be obvious names in any list, they have also taken extra effort to make sure that there are the not so often heard names to bring out the entire gamut of what India really is. So 75 should be celebrated not just for a certain type of icons, but a wide variety of icons. And a book like this does well to capture that. Seiko and Niladri, thank you for supporting this event. Um, I heard somebody mention that you've been around since 1881. That doing a quick math, that is certainly over almost touching 150 years, which is double of what this book is in numbers. So you must do 75 iconic watches, and we should publish this for you. But the only request is that every person from our team who works on this book should get the most expensive watch that I've shortlisted there, because I went to the panel, the watch showcase there, and I asked your salesperson, "सबसे महंगी घड़ी कौन सी है?" So on a more serious note, however, I think it's a brilliant partnership. Um, Obviously, watches are all about precision, etc., and I don't have to talk about the brand. But I think initiatives like this in a year like this are very important, and thank you for supporting this. Um, I genuinely hope, ladies and gentlemen, a book like this not isn't confined only to bookshops and some libraries and some households. A book like this should really be something that can percolate right down to as many people who can afford to buy it or want to read it. And I would request people from the community um, who would partner to make sure that we can widely distribute a book like this. Because when we're at 100, this 75 list is what we will always reflect back on. So with that, many congratulations once again to Sanjeev and Rajesh ji, and thanks to Seiko, and thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kapish sir. So I think Sanjeev sir has already got the idea for the upcoming book, another book that sir has given us. So thank you so much for being here with us. So now is the time to call upon Mr. Niladri Mazumdar, who is the president and also the COO of the Seiko Watch India Private Limited. So can we have a huge round of applause for Mr. Mazumdar?
So I have a large speech planned. Brace yourselves for it. Have your drinks, pick up a drink, whatever you want. Okay, jokes apart. Great idea on the book. 75 top watches. I'm going to choose mine, and you'll have your most expensive watch. I'll hold you to that. So thank you, and a very good evening to everyone here. I'm not as eloquent as Sanjeev or anyone or my earlier speaker, so I'm going to rely on these papers. But here goes. So, as a global watch manufacturer, with an enduring history, we're talking about 140 years of heritage, history. I hope that we try to understand time. But who understands time really? We don't. So, most importantly, we try to understand time and the impact that is made on time by inspirational lives, by inspirational moments, by acts of brilliance. We are today delighted on behalf of SECO to be here on this joyous occasion with all of you and to launch or continue the celebration of the 75 years of India's independence. Being a proud Indian myself and representing one of the oldest and most respected companies out of Japan, it would perhaps be right for me to talk a bit about Indo-Japanese relations and how it has grown from strength to strength over the years. So contacts between India and Japan, from my little research that I had, began around 1400 years back, with Buddhism moving into Japan in the 6th century. And this relationship or this friendship of India and Japan is rooted, I think, in spiritual affinity, in strong cultural and civilizational ties. These are very important for both these countries. India's earliest recorded link with Japan, if I remember, was the launch of the giant Buddha, I think, at Nara, at the Todiraji temple. And that was done by an Indian monk in 752 AD called Bodhisena or Bodhisena. And that's the link. When I traveled to Japan, you go to the temples, the two religions that are prevalent in Japan. You go to the temples and you go to the Shinto shrines, and you see a definite link between our value systems and their value systems, between what they follow and what we follow. Simple things like removing your slippers while going into a personal space is prevalent in both these countries. In contemporary times, when I say contemporary, I'm not talking about, I'm talking after 752 AD. You have a lot of eminent, iconic Indians associating with Japan, from Swami Vivekananda, Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, Subhash Chandra Bose. You have J.R.D. Tata, of course, Justice Radha Binod Pal, of whom many people don't know about, but if people know about him, people will know the impact he had on the Japanese there. The Japan-India Association actually was set up as far back as 1903. And till today, it is the oldest international friendship association in Japan. These are things that we didn't know. Some of that I also researched a bit. Now these two modern states, as we know them today, India and Japan, I think have taken this positive legacy forward. It has been strengthened by our values of democracy, by our values of rule of law, by our values of individual freedom. And I think that's the way to go forward. While we have done that, these values have created a partnership today based more on pragmatism and on principle. And that's where both these countries come together. If you go back into history, the real transformation in Japan-India relations happened in 2000, when Prime Minister Mori came to India on a historic visit, was hosted by our then Prime Minister, Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and the Indo-Japan Global Partnership for the 21st century was launched. And that catapulted a lot. And of course, after that, Mr. Modi's obvious friendship with Prime Minister Abe and everything catapulted the relationship growth between these two countries. So going back to similarities, we know about technology, we know about business, where Japan and India have worked together. We know about science and technology, business, commerce. That has been well documented. But what about the cultural aspect of it? When I traveled to Japan, I was amazed to see, that a lot of their life is influenced by cultural ethos that we carry with us. a lot of Japanese culture and our culture match. Their rituals and arts, for example, are inspired by nature, just like ours. Their marking of their festivals to mark change of seasons, very much like India, or vice versa, we might put it. Um, we have been influenced by them, they have been influenced by us. Uh, Literature, for example, Japan is heavily influenced by Indian literature, know it or not, ever since Buddhism made a foray there. On another front, let's say you have kabuki in Japan and you have kathakali in India, very similar. You have shorenbushi in Japan and koli in India, Maharashtrian form of dance. And on a more lighter note, you have tempura in Japan, right? And you have pakoras in India, correct? That's the most important part. And of course, curry. Our curry is the best. I still accept. Our curry is the best. They try to match it, but Japanese curry is very good, not bad. But Indian curry, you can't beat that. But that's the relationship. It's always there. So a lot of people, we are about books. We're talking about books. We all know about Murakami. We all know about other Japanese authors, and Indians have warmed up to these authors today. Um, Unknown to a lot of people, this relationship of Japan and India started actually long back, but in 1951, India used to invite Japanese students to India to learn Indian culture, to learn, to study in India. I don't know how much of that happens today, but that was a government-led program at that time. And it's interesting to know that. If you go back, there is I roam around Japan. When I go there, there's a Vivekananda Society there, or a Vivekananda Association there, established in 2009, which still teaches Bharatnatyam, Kathakali, I remember Sambalpuri, Orisi. It teaches Bollywood dancing, like it or not. It is a big thing for India to export Bollywood dancing, and it's a big thing all over the world today, in Japan as well, and also Bengali and Hindi. All of this is taught in that institute. So, in a nutshell, when I've traveled to Japan, one thing I've noticed is, and I've consistently been amazed by the respect they have for India as a country, our history, our values, and the overall respect the Japanese have for us. It's rare for any country in the world, almost uniformly, to have that respect for India in this divided times. Now, so the human contact, of course, started earlier with commodities trading, with trading in electronics and all. Today, it is more IT, engineers, professionals all working together. We have 10,000 Japanese working in India, citizens, and we have 40,000 Indian citizens working in Japan. So it's a huge thing happening there. Now, in all this, if you think that Japan only thinks about what is Japanese and they only know sushi, sashimi, and whatever, that's what we know about. They do a lot of research on India. They know a lot about our country. So the icons we are talking about here today, the 75 icons, are pretty much well known to them. Yeah, there might be some surprises for them, but I'm sure, Sanjeev, you should do a launch of this book in Japan itself, and you'll find a lot of people who would love to pick up your book there. We'll plan that sometime in Tokyo. Okay, so these people, the 75 people who are featured in this book, and many others who perhaps they have had to leave out because there can only be so many, have influenced not just us Indians, us billions of Indians over the last 75 years of independence, but the whole world. They've been a motivation to all of us, to the youth across the world. And by just living their lives the way they have lived it and following the principles, they have made us proud, they've made India proud, and have taken India to the forefront. So kudos to one of them who is here and the other 74. A round of applause for that, please. So like I said, the book will inspire people across the country and elsewhere and capture the imagination. And I think somewhere simplify the complexity of success, which doesn't come overnight. It comes with a lot of work, passion, dedication. I believe at the end that there's an icon in every one of us, just waiting to be tapped. Every individual, every youth in India should realize that there's this inherent faculty within themselves which is just waiting to come out. And I hope every Indian youth has the opportunity to read this book and realize that they can be one of these icons in the future and make India proud and keep India the envy of the rest of the world. So kudos to Sanjeev, to Ms. Rajesh Singh, to Rupa Publications for crafting this book and reminding us about these great individuals who have made a difference, not just to our country, but to the rest of society. Seiko and all of us are very proud today to be a part of this event. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. And I request you to stay back here with us. And a big thank you to Seiko, who has played a big part to make this event happen. And we are very happy and we are very honored for this beautiful collaboration between Seiko and Iconic Indians. So now is the time to hear from the people behind the books. First, I would like to call upon the author of the book, a renowned economist and a historian, someone who made significant contributions to the economic survey of India and has authored multiple books on Indian history. Not only that, he has also given the inaugural International Achievers Award for the contributions to literature. And he has also named as the Young Global Leader by World Economic Forum. So he's none other than the very special man of the evening, Mr. Sanjeev Sanyal.
Thank you very much. And let me first thank Seiko and specifically Niladri and Rajesh for helping us put this evening together. This is, of course, for me and Rajesh, a special book because it is, as you all know, the 75th year of Indian independence. And we thought, what better way to celebrate it than to speak about 75 iconic Indians. And so in that sense, this is our tribute to those 75 Indians who created post-independent India. And of course, as others have also mentioned, one of them, Dr. Kiran Bedi, is right here in front of me. Big round of applause for her. And the family of another one, Dr. B.B. Lal, is here as well. His son Rajesh is also here. Big round for him as well. And to all of you for taking time on a very, I would say, very rushed and busy evening today. I know some of you have suffered through some terrible traffic jams to get here, but I can see that my family from Gurgaon has finally made it here, including my nephews. Okay, so what was this book all about? Well, as you can imagine, putting a book together like this is a lot of hard work. But the first and most complicated thing one has to do is to choose 75 people from not just 1.38 billion people that are alive today, but starting from 15th of August 1947. Now notice that we did not include here those whose contributions were before independence. So this was something that both Rajesh and I agreed upon. This is a celebration of post-independence India. If nothing else, it was in order to keep the book tractable. This included, by the way, we left out people who may have been alive after independence, but whose contributions were largely before independence. So therefore, we really took those people whose contributions were about post-independence India. And then, of course, there were other things we had to keep in mind. In a book like this, usually, and I looked through a book, similar couple of books that were written in the 50th year of India's independence. And one of the things that struck me is that it was dominated by three groups of people: politicians, cricketers, and Bollywood. And both of us were quite definite that we were not going to allow that to happen. Not to suggest that these three groups of people are not important, but we were very keen that other facets of India's, public life were also brought in. So the book is full of all kinds of other people: sports persons, scientists, writers, archaeologist, historian, you name it. We have, of course. So there are all kinds of people from every walk of life. We tried to make sure that there were people from different parts of the country, and obviously Delhi and Mumbai tend to dominate any such list that you can put together. So we had to make sure that we didn't go and leave out people who made great contributions, but for a variety of reasons, left out of the national conversation. So we went out of our way to dig out people from the Northeast, from some of the smaller states, and so on. Of course, nothing wrong with Mumbai and Delhi. And there are quite a few people here, maybe even disproportionately so. But nevertheless, we did try to make sure there were people from different parts of the country, and as far as possible, represented here. Then we had to choose even after doing that. And so, for example, if there was a particularly great event, how do we, and there were multiple great moments of history, very often multiple people are responsible for it. So if there is such an event, then how many of them do you include there and how many do you leave out? Now sometimes it's easy to do. So say the 1983 Cricket World Cup victory. Now, I think fair enough if we had chosen Kapil Dev as kind of the representative of that moment. But more complicated when you say take something like the 1991 reforms. Should P.V. Narasimha Rao be there, or Manmohan Singh, or both? And we eventually chose P.V. Narasimha Rao. This is not to demean Dr. Manmohan Singh's contribution, but then we had to make these kinds of choices along the way. We also had to be fair to every decade along the way. So it's very often tempting to give a lot more weightage to our own times. But let's say we were taking sportsmen from this entire period, and you'd go back to the early period, part of this time, and you would think about who were the great sportsmen in the first 2 decades of India's independence. And it turns out, by some margin, the great sportsman of that time was a hockey player called Balbir Singh Dosanjh. Now, many of you are younger members of the audience may not even know who he is, but he was considered, after Dhyan Chand, the greatest hockey player ever. And he was instrumental in 2 gold medals that India won in the Olympics. So again, what I'm trying to say is there is a fair amount of effort that goes into choosing these things. Then, of course, came the problem of writing them. Now, I've written multiple books, and so has Rajesh, but they tend to be on one topic. Now, doing books worth of effort on one topic and doing 75 topics worth of 4 pages, I can assure you that the latter is much more difficult, because you're always wondering whether you're making some real boo-boo about some icon, and then you'll get called out and pilloried for it on Twitter. So I have to say, a lot of work did go into doing this, and Rajesh particularly put in a lot more work than I would for going and making sure every single piece was hammered, every single nail was hammered in. So I hope there aren't too many mistakes, and I hope we get forgiven for if there are any. Please bring them to our notice if they are there, and we'll be happy to correct them. And then, of course, there was the wonderful team from Rupa. There's Kapish, of course, who you saw just earlier. And then there was Yamini, our editor. And then there was a whole team, whether it's Aurodeep and Sakshi, who helped copy edit this book. Then there's Vasundhara, who helped put this event together today. There were Gurvinder and Mahima, who used to work for me when I was at the finance ministry, and they both volunteered to put some of the help me with the research and get some photographs and so on. There's also Vinayak. I don't know if he's in the audience somewhere. There he is. He, I mean, extraordinary amount of work to pull out photographs for this, especially since you have to remember, we have to make sure that the copyrights are all right. So he had to go and dig through all of the PIB's millions of photographs that they have and pull out photographs. Now, obviously, for some of the people, it's easy to get, but there were people from especially the earlier decades, military heroes, for example. We have got several military heroes here, and finding some of their photographs was not easy. And he found them, he dug them out from the PIBs and other archives, hunted down some of the families down to be able to get the photographs. So a lot of work went into putting this together. So I really hope you appreciate and enjoy the book. Now, what I'm going to do is read out one of the characters to give you a flavor of the book, the kinds of characters we have have in this book. This one is one of my favorites. It's a swimming sensation, Mihir Sen. So I'm going to read out this section so that it's not too long. So you you will find that he is quite a character. He's not just a swimming sensation, but successful lawyer. He's one of the founders of our ready-made garments industry, surprisingly, and not many people know this. And yet, India was not very kind to him. So I'm going to read about his life. So Mihir Sen, the swimming sensation, chapter 19. From doing a menial job at a railway station in England and being called to the bar at Lincoln's Inn to becoming the world's greatest long-distance swimmer and turning into a successful businessman, Mihir Sen's life story is fascinating. And yet, it is also tragic. Because Sen was struck by Alzheimer's and lost the precious memories of his feats and was abandoned by relatives, friends, and well-wishers. In his last days, lying helpless in a hospital in Kolkata, the 66-year-old inhabited a world of loneliness and emptiness. He breathed his last on 11 June 1997, so not very long back. Mihir Sen, born on 16th November 1930 in Purulia district of West Bengal, was the first Indian to swim across the English Channel from Dover to Calais in 1958. Not just that, he did so in the fourth fastest time at that time, 14 hours and 45 minutes. 8 years later, he became the only person to swim across the oceans of 5 continents in one calendar year. They included the Pork Strait, the Dardanelles, Bosphorus, Gibraltar, and the entire length of the Panama Canal. The Guinness Book of World Records called him the world's greatest long-distance swimmer. Sen's mother, Leelabati, was determined to give him the best education the family could afford, though their financial condition was precarious. She supplemented her husband's income by selling chicken eggs and milk obtained from the 2 cows and chickens she kept in her backyard. The family shifted to Cuttack when they were 8, and so he could attend a better school. He graduated with a degree in law from Utkal University in Bhubaneswar, Odisha, all the while struggling for shortage of money. The financial crunch did not quite quell Sen's ambitions. With his mother's moral support, he began to go to England to prepare for the bar, but money was once again the problem. Then the Chief Minister Biju Patnaik came to his help, but only after relentless persuasion by Sen's family, and in 1950 he boarded a ship to England. He found a job in a railway station in the country and had to work night shifts. Found sleeping on duty one day, he was sacked. So Sen was told that India House recruited Indians for employment while they studied, and he made his way there. He was hired by the Indian ambassador V.K. Krishna Menon, but only after he had been initially turned down. He enrolled at Lincoln's Inn to study law in 1951. He would work through the day at India House, which meant that he could not attend classes, so he studied at night from books he borrowed from the institution's library. The hard work paid off, and he was called to the bar at Lincoln's Inn in February 1954. Now, this alone is quite an achievement. But here goes. Around that time, Sen happened to read an article about Florence May Chadwick, who became the first American woman to swim the English Channel in 1950. It inspired him no end, and he resolved to do the same. The problem was that he had virtually no experience in swimming. At that time, he barely knew the dog paddle, which he had learned in a pond in Cuttack. So, determined nonetheless, a trait that he had inherited from his mother, he enrolled for classes at the local YMCA club and mastered the front crawl or the freestyle technique after practicing for hours every day. On 27th of September 1958, he did what seemed impossible. He swam the English Channel. He was a national hero by then, and he returned home. And in 1959, he was awarded the Padma Shri. The achievements boosted his morale, and Sen set out for greater glories in his newly acquired sport. He became the first man to swim the oceans of the first 5 continents in 1 calendar year. But he first needed 45,000 rupees to pay the Indian Navy for both the record keeping and to navigate the Pork Straits. He raised half the amount through sponsors, notably Kolkata's The Statesman, the newspaper. The balance of amount came from, guess who? Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, who, by the way, is also featured in the book. With her nod, the Indian Navy's INS Sukanya and INS Sharada accompanied Sen on his swim. Sen became the first Indian on record to swim across the Pork Straits on 5th, 6th April 1966 between Sri Lanka and Dhanushkoti in 25 hours and 36 minutes. On 24th August, he became the first Asian to cross the Straits of Gibraltar between Europe and Africa in about 8 hours. On 12th September, he became the world's first man to swim across the 40-mile long of the Dardanelles in Gallipoli between Europe to Asia Minor in 13 hours and 55 minutes. The same year, he became the first Indian to swim Bosphorus in 4 hours. By this point, I suppose 4 hours kind of was not much. As well as the first non-American to swim across the entire length, the 80-kilometer length of the Panama Canal in 34 hours on the 29th and 31st of October. This achievement earned him a place in the Guinness Book of World Records as the world's greatest long-distance swimmer. He was awarded the Padma Bhushan in 1967. His exploits were recorded in the Black Books in Lincoln's Inn. Now, all of this would also have been enough. But then, look what he does. He returned to India in 1958, shortly after his English Channel victory. He practiced criminal law in Calcutta High Court, but later turned into a successful businessman. His company was recognized by the government of India as the country's second largest exporter of silk. While Mihir had navigated the difficult waters across the world, it was politics that went on to test him in a different way. The then communist government of Jyoti Basu in West Bengal wanted him to be one of the Marxist Party's campaigners. He refused, and look at this. Instead, he contested as an independent candidate against Basu. He lost, and the party and the government in West Bengal went on an overdrive against his business, fomenting labor trouble and destroyed his venture. Cases were initiated against him. His house and office were raided, and his bank account was frozen. He went bankrupt. He was left with no money even to feed his family. By the time he was 50, he had suffered a minor stroke and was a shattered man. When Jyoti Basu yet again approached Sen in 1988, he told him that all his problems would be resolved overnight if he joined the CPM. Though he was severely ill, Sen flatly rejected the offer. As a result, his problems only increased. As another writer said, such was the reward for a man who had brought such glory to his country. With that, let me close this and hand it back to the MC.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sanyal. And congratulations for iconic Indians. And I'm sure This book will be legendary or not only for today's generation, but especially for our upcoming generation, who must not be knowing about a lot of legends of India, where they'll be learning a lot of legends, but also their inspirations and what they've done in their great lives. So, a big, big congratulations to all of us. And now is the time to call upon the co author of this book. He's a freelance analyst of politics, governance, and public affairs. And along with that, he was also the first Deputy National Bureau Chief and later opinion editor at Pioneer. He also has written many books on history and politics. He's none other than Mr. Rajesh Singh. So, guys, please give it up for Mr. Rajesh Singh.
Distinguished guests, friends, those who are students of psychology will have heard of Abraham Maslow. Now, Abraham Maslow was a psychologist who was the first person, perhaps, to categorize universal needs of human beings. He was also perhaps the first to classify those needs according to the priorities. Now, those needs he depicted through a pyramid. At the base of the pyramid, where the basic needs, food, shelter, water, clothing, etc., and then once they were taken care of or nearly taken care of, the next needs would continue right until the peak of the pyramid. So you had food, clothing, shelter, etc. Then you would have education, health, you would have security, safety, then the need for admiration, the need to be liked, the need to be loved, etc. And then further up, you have the need to be appreciated, and and you go on. Right at the end, you have the need for self-actualization, introspection, spiritual thinking, philosophical thoughts, etc., etc. Now, these needs are, as I said before, they are all universal and they fit every human being. But there is one other need which can be added to every level right up to the end of the pyramid. And that need is the need for motivation, the need for inspiration, and in some cases, the need for idealization, which is different from idolization, by the way. Now, this book, Iconic Indians, hopes to meet that universal need. The people who have been featured in this book, they are all in their own ways motivators and inspirations for millions of Indians through the decades. These people, these iconic Indians, at some point of time must have also been motivated by somebody or the other, or maybe by something that they read, or maybe by circumstances that came their way. In any case, motivation and inspiration are universal needs for people who are struggling and also for those who have reached a certain level. So, iconic Indians, I would say there are two ways to approach this book. One is to read these chapters in silos, revel and appreciate the individuals for their performance in their respective fields and get motivated and inspired by that, of course. But there is another way. We can consider all these 75 iconic Indians featured in this book as a bouquet of what New India represents. It's not just an individual. That individual is a representative of this country over the decades, the value systems, the confidence, the I can do it attitude. All of these 75 Indians who have been featured have, in their respective areas, showed the I can do it attitude. Many of them have suffered reverses, many of them face challenges, and yet they all emerged out of it stronger and better. Therefore, the iconic Indians can be considered as a representative book of an India that is self confident, that is assured, that says we can meet and we can face the best in the world and be the best in the world. As Sanjeev just said, I mean, Mihir Sen, he became the best in the world. There are so many others. We have an iconic Indian right here. It's an honor for us. Uh, Mrs. Kiran Bedi ji, and at her time when she took up tennis at a professional level, how many women Indian players were there who were playing tennis or who took that? Even today, decades after, how many tennis players are there in this country? Women tennis players, you can count them on your fingertips. So it was that difficult. And yet, she became a success there. And of course, the rest is all known. Her exploits as an IPS officer, etc., etc. That a lot of people know about these things, about her success. Very few people, perhaps, have read about the challenges that she has faced in her life, professional challenges, but also personal challenges. And how did she emerge out of that? We only see the iconic Indian as that person is presented to all of us in public. We do not know what sacrifices that person has had to make to reach that level. So I would say that this book, Iconic Indians, is basically also our tribute to these 75 extraordinary individuals who are celebrities, but more importantly, who have faced challenges and emerged victorious. I think personally that is the most important thing. I'll just give you another example before I read out a passage here. We all talk of this great iconic figure, Amitabh Bachchan, right? We know him as a superstar, as a hero, the as the anchor of Kaun Banega Crorepati and everything else. But I think personally, I feel that if he is an icon today, it is because of how he conducted himself during his worst phase of life. The dignity with which he managed that crisis and the way he emerged out of that. I think that makes a person a greater icon. You can be an icon before. You can be born with a silver spoon in your mouth and you can die with a silver spoon in your mouth. Your challenges may be business related, your challenges may be all of that. But when you face a challenge that just pulls you down in your life, when you don't seem to see any doors opening, when there is darkness everywhere, and you really don't know what's going to happen next, then how you react to that situation. I think that is the mark of an icon. If you do it like Amitabh Bachchan did, but there are many who don't. We have several people, several examples in this country who are icons, who are brands, but they've just collapsed over the years. Amitabh Bachchan still goes on. So I would say that readers who are looking to read this book, and I hope they enjoy reading it, they should look at it from this perspective, that this is a collection of extraordinary stories. And extraordinary stories come with extraordinary sacrifices and challenges. So I hope we all keep that in mind and do not get just carried away by the glitz and glamour that eventually gets projected in the public eye. Now I'll just read out a short passage from the exploits of one of the icons. And yes, uh, this is Yogendra Singh Yadav. He was supposed to be here among us. Unfortunately, his mother is taken ill and he had to rush to the hospital. And it would have been such an honor if he had been around. And I'll tell you why. When you listen to his story, he is one of the, perhaps, I think only perhaps, and I'm open to be corrected here, living Param Vir Chakra awardees. two, three others. Three, yeah. So one of the living Param Vir Chakra awardees here. Now, his story is not just fascinating. I mean, it's it's even beyond the imagination of any hyper imaginative Bollywood director. Now, I'll just read out a small part. Yeah. This is the story on Tiger Hill, and this happened in the early hours of July 1999. And this was a confrontation with the Pakistani forces. Now, I'll read this. The Pakistani soldiers came close and fired a few more shots, hitting Yadav as well. He was there, whom they had given up for dead earlier. Now, now I start from here because I want you to tell you that earlier on, this entire team of people, of Indian soldiers, including this man, had been attacked by bullets and shells, and they had been so badly attacked that they were considered dead. He is Yadav. He now had 14 bullets in his body, and yet miraculously he was alive. He knew that if he did not do something, 18 of his men trapped close by would become easy targets for the Pakistani troops. He willed himself to remain alive, perhaps thinking that if he was breathing even after taking so many bullets, there was no reason why he should not live longer. And he did. Bleeding profusely and with bloodied eyes, Yadav managed to extricate a grenade strapped to his belt. Now just imagine a man with 14 bullets, bleeding, unable to move. Even this small, seemingly small act of removing a grenade can be so excruciatingly painful. But he does it. Yadav managed to extricate a grenade strapped to his belt, removed the pin with great difficulty, and flung it at the enemy soldiers. He did it lying down, as he did not have the strength to stand. One Pakistani soldier's head was blown off by the impact, and the body fell right on top of Yadav. They were that close. Who then picked up his rifle and began to fire shots at the enemy men standing at a little distance. Now, this man not just removes the pin of the grenade, he also begins to fire in that condition, physical condition that he was in. Now, there is a quote here. The shooting created instant panic. The Pakistanis who had believed that the Indians were dead thought reinforcements had arrived from below the hill. They fled, and Yadav started crawling towards his post, desperate to warn his colleagues. He was hanging from a rock when his men discovered him. They carried him on their backs down Tiger Hill. He had lost a lot of blood and was slipping into unconsciousness. He could not see, but he did recognize the voice of his commanding officer. He was shifted to the base hospital in Srinagar and later to Delhi. Yadav remained in a coma for 3 days, and it took him years to fully recover. He was told the first thing he did soon after coming to his senses was to inquire about his battalion. He was told that the Indian troops had captured the heights without much resistance from the enemy thanks to his bravery. The incredible soldier became one of the rare living military heroes to have the Param Vir Chakra pinned on his clothes. Every Republic Day, he comes down to Delhi, puts down his number 1 uniform, pins his medals on his chest, and leads the parade down Rajpath from an open jeep. So, friends, this is an example of incredible bravery. Incredible bravery. Now, as thank you, and that's a tribute to our brave soldiers. Now, as Sanjeev had said, it was very difficult for us to, include all of the great men and women And I would just end this by saying that we may have left out quite a few whom we could not include in this, but they are no less icons. They are icons and they'll remain icons. We had a particular task to perform, and we did it uh, in the way that we could. And we readily accept that there could be people outside, military heroes, in fact, also from politics, maybe from public service, from sports, wherever, films, entertainment, who ought to have been included. Maybe 100 icons. Sanjeev will do it after 25 years. Hmm. He's got a better chance of doing it than me. All right. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rajesh. And a big congratulations to you as well for iconic Indians. And now is the time to call on two of the iconic individuals who made a true impact on their generations. Two individuals who will share their thoughts with us today. First is the former IPS officer and the Lieutenant Governor of Puducherry, Dr. Kiran Bedi. And along with that, we also have Mr. Rajesh Lal, who is the son of Mr. B.B. Lal, who was a renowned author and an archaeologist who served as the Director General of the Archaeological Survey of India. He was awarded both the Padma Bhushan and Padma Vibhushan for his contributions. And now I request Dr. Bedi and Mr. Rajesh Lal to please release the book. And for that, I request you both to please join us on the stage. And I would like to request Mr. Nadri, who's already here. Okay, so I request Dr. Bedi, and I also request Dr. Rajesh Lal to please join us on the stage to release the book. Copy. I also request Mr. Kapish Mehra to join here on the stage.
We have more books. We have them. We have.
So here we are launching iconic Indians, 75 extraordinary individuals who inspired the country. And we have one of them here with us, who's Dr. Kiran Bedi, who has always been an inspiration to our country. And we also have the son of Mr. B.B. Lal, who's Mr. Rajesh Lal. Thank you so much for your presence. And we are very excited to go through this book. A big congratulations to both of our authors, and a big congratulations to all of us for having this legendary book in our country.
We don't have enough chairs. We have one? Good. We'll just squeeze it a little bit. And then.
One that side. That's it. Us taraf.
Switch a little. Switch the. Let's switch this.
And now is the time to bring on Dr. Kiran Bedi, who shared her thoughts. She's a super cop who made an impact on the country and later went on to showcase her exemplary leadership in the world of governance. And I always remember in my school times, my teacher always used to tell about her, especially in the social studies classes, and a lot of other examples. I have seen her on television, and it's my honor to share the stage with us. And it's our honor to have her here at the iconic Indians launch. Look, ladies and gentlemen, can we have a huge round of applause for none other than the woman herself, Dr. Kiran Bedi.
You have a little platform, a small little platform, small little box. Do we?
Why don't you sit and would you prefer to sit and speak?
No. नहीं ऐसे ठीक है. Friends, what an honor to be here, to be part of this book release. A book which I've read from cover to cover already. I will start my sharing with a caveat. To my mind, every Indian who has worked towards nation building in a constructive way is iconic. Many remain unknown, which is why the All India Radio is regularly running a series on unsung heroes of the freedom movement. And I watch it and I read it and hear it every day. Hence, I treat this book of 75 as a tribute to those who surfaced and became visibly known, got studied, got seen, got heard, got experienced, impacted, and felt. This 75 in no way excludes all other innumerable invisible icons. Now, this book is of 75 icons who they identified and researched, and as they deemed most appropriate. Let me thank and congratulate the two authors, Sanjeev Sanyal and Rajesh Singh, and the publisher Rupa Publishers for an iconic book. I have read, as I said, book page to page, not because I was going to be speaker, because earlier Sanjeev said, we may have 3 minutes. That's what you said. We may have 3 minutes. Even then I read it. It doesn't matter 3 minutes, but 3 minutes is, but it was such a valuable reading that even if it was just for 3 minutes, I have to read the book because I couldn't hold myself back because the contents of the book were unstoppable. I was curious to know these icons. Friends, I realized, and as I read, 1/3 of the 75 icons are from the world of ultimate raw valor. And you've got the narration of Mr. Yadav. Raw valor, grit, and janoon with missionary zeal. They were passionate patriots, visionaries, and an iron will. Unmatchable. Part of these other 1/3 are champion of champions, the world beaters who regaled in seeing the tricolor fly high through competitions of the highest order. They gave their everything to that glory. You see Mihir Sen's story you already heard. The other 1/3 is from the world of national leadership, public life, politics, art, culture, music, and industry, who brought versatility, growth, originality, empowering, and changing for better lives for millions of people. The other 1/3 are a spread from the world of most creative leadership in science, media, information technology, environment, law enforcement, and philanthropy. Each one, friends, stands out in nation building in extraordinary ways and left an indelible mark in fostering new thinking. They remain and shall remain icons for future generations. The book is written in a very easy read. Very easy read. That's why I could read so fast and so well. Couldn't get my eyes off. One could move from one life to the other very engagingly. However, in response to the request by the organizers, I was given an option to present one icon. And I have this particular one for 3 primary reasons. First, his leadership, friends, is like sunshine. It's impacting billions within India and outside. 2, the making of this icon offers a blueprint to my mind for the young leadership who wishes to be in political administration. And I shall explain as I assessed. Third reason I shall give you after I finish with the first 2. This icon is a helmsman who directly guides 1.3 billion Indians. He's also the most popular and admired political leader of the world. His personal journey for me is very realistic, is a very realistic blueprint for inspiration of emerging leadership. for reasons. A, he comes from small town. 2, one of the many siblings. Humble household. Father, a small shopkeeper selling tea. Local railway station, selling tea at a local railway station. Helping father after school. Reading books from school library. Inspired by writings of Swami Vivekananda. He's a part of the National Cadet Corps. He attends local shakhas. He was inducted as a teenager as Bal Swam Sevak, or as a junior volunteer into the organization. He's driven by a spiritual thirst. He left home at the age of 17. He travels across India. Next 2 years, he spends his life in the Himalayas, wanting to join the Ramakrishna mission. And that something was not written in the book, which I know personally, is one of the Swamiji of the Ramakrishna mission said that yes, he came to the Ramakrishna mission to join. And the Ramakrishna mission turned him back, saying, "You're not a graduate. We only take in graduates. First do your graduation, then come." So he returns home. Now he starts working in a canteen of his uncle. With time in hand, he connects with an organization called the RSS, a grooming organization, and now a full-time as a pracharak. This organization lays the foundation of discipline and resolve for him. His day, friends, would start early and go on till late, interacting with people at the ground level. Dynamics of politics and mass mobilization he witnessed. As a pracharak, he was organizing meetings and logistics and went underground during emergency. After emergency, he was given area responsibility, organizational role, as well as political work. Because of his successful work in Ahmedabad, he was given the territory Ahmedabad. He's now General Secretary Organization of a particular political party called now the BJP in Gujarat. He organizes several yatras to strengthen the outreach, including one of Somnath Ayodhya, which leads to 3 decades later to the rebuilding of Ram Janambhoomi temple in Ayodhya, but something which started within 3 decades ago. He does also an Ekta Yatra from the Kanyakumari, ending with hoisting of the tricolour in Srinagar, finally which culminates in removal of Article 370 in 2019. Continuing to make BJP now the party win, he was now made National Secretary of the party with a charge of several northern states. Few years later, he was now made the BJP National General Secretary, again organization. Now he comes to notice. It's now. He's come to notice. Look how destiny plays a hand in this. Internal squabbles. Because of internal squabbles, he was made the Chief Minister of Gujarat. Because of internal squabbles. Not that he elbowed his way in. Because of internal squabbles, they couldn't choose one. Now, as soon as he's made, he's tested by fire. He goes through a trial by fire. He handles the Bhuj earthquake relief, which came within months, and does a whole reconstruction to a mass applause. His performance as chief minister and the plethora of initiatives he took and continues ever since then as chief minister and then as a prime minister remains. It'll get written when the book is written for 100 years, 100 icons. It'll get extended. I am nobody to judge it at the moment. I'm only presenting to you what was stated by these historians, these authors. I've added nothing more except the Ramakrishna mission issue. Now, I told you, I'll tell you the third reason. Why have I chosen this icon? Not just because of the book, because I've seen it myself. Experienced from the year 2016 to 2021 as the Lieutenant Governor of Puducherry. Friends, we could not have had thousands and thousands of toilets pre-COVID without his Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. I saw it, how we were persevered and followed up to see how many toilets have been built where. And how I also saw how certain areas of certain people, vested interests, were not interested in seeing that this is implemented. Because at that time, Pondicherry did not have a friendly government to the government of India. But how he managed to pull this through, ensuring that we get enough resources to build, and how he himself came up on webinars regularly, pre-COVID and post-COVID, during COVID, that it made it happen. And imagine if we had not had these millions of toilets on the sites where people were not building toilets. They had lands, they had a room spare, but it was considered as impure to have a toilet indoors. So they would rather go out and spoil the pond and the canal and pollute it rather than have a toilet. But they all made they made toilets because they were left with no option. This was pre-COVID. But imagine, but during COVID, it paid off. Then the cooking gas connections, where women finally got them at home, pre-COVID and during COVID, reaching households. Jandhan accounts, digitization, food money, and also food at the doorsteps. I know how we ran the trucks to make sure the food is left at the doorstep during COVID times, and how monies were being released in advance to make sure that things happen. The gem portals, where the PWDs of the day were constricted to say, you're not going to go into the open market, throw it on the channel, throw it on the website, do it digital, open market, and select digitally. It's that kind of transparency through gem portals. More than 100 centrally sponsored schemes, which I do not know. I do not know how much the media reports, but I'm giving you what I've experienced myself. 100 centrally sponsored scheme. Somewhere government of India was 90% contributing, some state of government was 10%, some were 100%, somebody was 60-40, dependent upon the scheme to scheme varied. More than 100 centrally sponsored scheme impacting the grassroots. The Gati Shakti, which you all hear about. Gati Shakti is bringing all the departments together to synergize and coordinate and not compete but collaborate. The vaccine, and the international support as pharmacy of the world, the advocacy for collaborative grassroots approach geographically and nationally. I saw this myself. So that may not be part of the book, but as I told you, I'll give you the third reason why I chose this icon, because other icons I don't have personally experienced. I can read. But this is one icon, not because he's the Prime Minister of India, but I saw 5 years, the way he led us through the total challenge and adversity. And also with hostility at times. So with his persistent, sustained, constant evaluations and communication, all this happened. His tireless work, his creativity, his bringing a sense of pride overseas for all Indians. I've just recently returned from a long trip in overseas. Not one Indian came up and said, thank you for what's happening. Things are changing. We are very happy. We are very proud. One after the other. They may agree with some views, they may not. But the fact is that they are proud Indians overseas. So his bringing a sense of pride overseas for all Indians made him the last and the most vital learner. And by the way, this is the last chapter of the book. This book is the last chapter of the book. It didn't come with it begins with Jawaharlal Nehru. It ends with Narendra Modi. That's the first time I'm mentioning his name. The 75 icons, friends, is only for now and a limited edition. We can have a series. We can have a series. We can have a series. I thank the publishers the most and the authors the most for giving me this rare opportunity to be a part of the book and do these honors. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bedi, for being here with us. So, ladies and gentlemen, can we have a huge round of applause for the iconic Indian and the iconic lady of our country? So now is the time for question and answers. So we are open for question and answers. So in case you have any questions.
Why don't I handle this part?
Sure. Of course, I was about to call you. So, ladies and gentlemen, in case you have any questions, you can raise your hand and sir will take over.
Okay, thank you. So, thank you, Dr. Bedi, for this wonderful talk you gave. And we have here also, of course, the son of another icon, Professor B.B. Lal, one of my great favorites because he is by some margin, those of you who don't know about him, by some margin, probably the greatest Indian archaeologist ever. And he did certain, he sadly just passed away a couple of months ago. I really wish he had been here today, but we are grateful to you, sir, for coming here. I did have the occasion of spending a wonderful afternoon with him just before COVID happened. And he was in a lovely mood that day, and he was reminiscing about some of the great archaeological digs he had done. But just to give you a sense of the kind of influence he had, um, Professor Lal in the 50s had gone and dug up all the sites relating to the Mahabharata and Ramayana all across India. And it's very sad, but after his digs, there have been no digs in those places ever again. And I really hope to be able to encourage the current government to go out and revisit the sites. In fact, there is an effort to do so. But so, he was a really real true icon. So since we have you here, and I know I haven't warned you about speaking, but nevertheless, since we have you on stage, I would love for you to say a few words about your father, the kind of person he is. They can all read about his archaeology in other places, including the book. Can you give us a flavor of the kind of man he was? And maybe when you were younger, you spent some time of some of those iconic digs as well.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Professor Lal started his, in school he was told that Mahabharata is a myth, Ramayana is a myth. So yeah, okay. So when he got into archaeology, he said this is the time to prove whether it was so or not. He started his first excavations were in 5250, were in Hastinapur and Kurukshetra and Indraprasth and all sites connected with the Mahabharata. That was one area which he addressed. Then after he retired from as a Director General Archaeology, he addressed those areas connected with the Ramayana. And that excavation was 7 years. Ayodhya, Bhardwaj Ashram. Ayodhya, as you perhaps know, was the first to discover those temple pillars which laid the foundation for the Ram temple. And Bhardwaj Ashram, Chitrakoot, etc., etc. He also excavated sites connected with the Sindhu Saraswati civilization. The place was Kalibanga. Kalibanga revealed habitation of pre-Harappa and mature Harappan days. That excavation was 8 years. A wonderful site, unfortunately neglected by the powers that be. And he also was very keen to dispel the theories of the British, what they laid down on Aryan invasion. And he went and lent hammer and tongs he invited everybody who wanted to challenge him on this issue. But nobody ever came forward. And all the theories that he's put up ever since, and he's got 23 books to his credit, he has, there have been nobody who said anything otherwise. Honored by the president, Padma Bhushan and Padma Bhushan, honored by 2 vice presidents, 5 D-Lits, and very, very, very brilliant. It's a sad thing, but he passed away 40 days back. And after that, I had written a book. It was connecting with the Mahabharata. It was dedicated to him because he started his excavations with Hastinapur. He wasn't there to be, to get that book. He and I was a co-author of that book, Neera Mishra. She won on 19th September, and he wasn't there. At this occasion, he is not there. And I also must tell you that at the age of 99, he started a book on Aryan theory, and it was meant for people north of India. He says, I must put it in writing. And I was the Hindi, this thing, Aryan ka Adi Desh. He started at the age of 99. He finished it last year at the age of 100, given to the publisher. And that was to be released this month. So he has missed 3 occasions where he could have been here, the connecting with the Mahabharata, Aryan ka Adi Desh, and iconic Indians. Thank you. I wish I could say more. I would say more.
I think perhaps this is a good time to turn to the audience. I'm sure there are lots of questions for everybody. Is there a, yeah, there's a mic right out there. Yes,
Yeah.
Vidika, over to you.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi. So I actually have 2 burning questions for the authors. One is, what are the criteria that you employed or the yardsticks that you used to select these 75 out of so many others iconic Indians that Dr. Kiran Bedi was talking about? And my second question to you, Sanjeev, is, of these 75, which is your most favorite iconic Indian?
The second question is almost impossible to say because it's a lot of it is comparing apples with oranges. But let's say the point is there are 75 Indians out, not, as I said in my talk as well. It's not just, if I had to take 75 Indians of today, it would probably also be difficult. But I'm taking over 75 years as well. So once you take the pool of people, it's not easy. Also, remember, we were quite keen that we maintained a fair amount of distribution over various parameters, gender, spatially, even geography, across different types of sectors, across decades, and so on. So we had lots of hot debates as Rajesh and I about who, but I think in the end we came up with what we think was great. But you know, right to the end, we were debating Salim Ali or Nammi Narayanan. Yes,
Yeah, so as Sanjeev said, till the very end, we were talking about, who should be added. The question was not, you see, you asked a question whether what was the criteria adopted. Now the criteria, as Sanjeev said, was one, the cutoff date of of functioning post 1947, and then an even representation across the country. But even after all that, we, as he said just now, we used to have a lot of, back and forth regarding individuals. The reason is that while some of the criteria were objective, now who can say, for example, that Nehru should not be in the list, or that Modi should not be in the list, or that Mrs. Bedi should not be in the list, or that Tendulkar should not be in the list? There was never any dispute. Now, but at the same time, we also had to use our own, not prejudices, but our likes, you can say, in sometimes deciding on whom to push out and whom to keep in. Now, this does not mean that somebody who has not made it is any less of an icon. I'll give you an example. We had a lot of discussion on whether we should have Ilayi Raja or A.R. Rahman. Right? Eventually, we opted for Ilayi Raja. And A.R. Rahman got kept out. As he said, Salim Ali was a later addition. And we had to, and we also dropped a few. I will not name them, but we had to drop them. Not because they were less of an icon, but because we found somebody we thought, also 75, that figure, we found somebody we thought has to be in the list of 75. So these were the parameters we used. Even then, we had our own nice little disagreements. Sanjeev was not very keen on Begum Akhtar, by the way. I must hold it against him forever. I shall do that because Begum Akhtar is my favorite, right? And but I do feel sorry, that we could not have that one ghazal singer whose name you all know, Jagjit Singh. Yes, I mean he had an enormous impact on the ghazal industry. We couldn't have him, and I feel bad for that. But yes, but Sanjeev was also, yeah, but Sanjeev did also introduce me to names I had never heard of. The scientist Shambhunath Dey. I had never heard of Shambhunath Dey. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Shambhunath Dey was when he introduced and he sent me a few articles, and I began reading, and Shambhunath Dey turned out to be a scientist who had discovered the root remedy for cholera. That was a time when even people like Louis Pasteur had failed in doing it. Now, the cholera, yes, cholera. And it was his breakthrough that eventually led to the production of medicines to fight that disease. Now, Shambhunath Dey was basically, forgotten. He was unsung in this country, and according to what I had read and we had researched, he had also been considered for the Nobel Prize in Medicine. He never got it. That's different. A lot of foreign biologists, scientists rooted for him. Unfortunately, within the country, the scientific community hardly gave him the importance that he deserved, and that importance came much later as an afterthought.
Yes, in fact, Shambhunath Dey is a classic example. I mean, of course, cholera, do remember, was one of the biggest killers in the world 100 years ago, or even 50 years ago. So to have found a cure for cholera is not a small thing. It was something that used to kill millions of people and not so long ago. So here is a person who should genuinely have got a Nobel, but at least I can say that even if he didn't get the Nobel, he was recognized outside of India. But in India, we have almost forgotten him, to the extent I'll be very surprised if there are more than 10-15% of the audience here would have heard of him. So there were such characters, and I thought we had to have them in the book. Any other questions? Somebody already has the mic, so he who holds the mic wins.
Yeah, sure. So Sanjeev, it seems to be a very interesting topic, and I remember one of the quotes of Mahatma Gandhi. He says, प्रेरणा लेनी चाहिए, जो बहुत ही जिनकी आप आत्मकथा पढ़िए उनसे प्रेरणा लेनी चाहिए, जिन्होंने बहुत अच्छे काम किए. Anyway, my question is that what is your source of inspiration for writing this book?
So my source of inspiration, was the fact that this was the 75th year of Indian independence. As a writer, I was wondering what it is that I can do, which was specific. And I've been working on one book, which I will also be releasing in a few months, which is a somewhat alternative history of India's independence and looking at it from the perspective of the revolutionaries and the armed struggle. So I hope to have all of you back in this room in about 4 months' time. But the problem with that book was that it was a celebration of how we became independent, not a celebration of independent India. And as important as the independence movement was, the fact is we need to celebrate what happened afterwards and who we are today. So at least for me, that was the driving force behind writing this book. And I was sort of thinking about it. And then as a coincidence, both Rajesh and I decided that this is a good idea. And where is Yamini? Where is she gone? There. She's run away. Don't tell me. Shocking. But anyway, she brought her into the conversation, and Rupa agreed to publish it. So that's how it all sort of came together. And I'll hand it to Rajesh. Maybe he can say a few words about his inspiration.
Well, let me be frank. I never had the time to get inspired. Rupa approached Sanjeev with the idea. Sanjeev must have given that idea. Rupa approached him. He wanted someone to do a, field research, some kind of a research assistant. Then some brilliant mind in Rupa suggested my name, a person who had already done 3 books, as a research assistant. Right? So Sanjeev heard that and said, but I know him. I know him. He was in the Pioneer and he's reviewed my books. How can I have him as a research assistant? He's too senior. So let's make him a co-author. So that's how I jumped into the scene, and I never got a chance to be inspired by anybody. I'm still looking for that inspiration. I hope I get it someday.
Yeah, next question, please. I have Gautam here, and then we will move to this side because I somehow, I'll be accused of being too right-wing.
Hi. So far, other than Kiran Bedi ji, all the icons you've talked about or have discussed, including what Kiran Bedi ji spoke, are all men. Where are the women in your book? How many women are there? Can we get a glimpse about some women heroes of India?
There are many, and why don't I allow the women icon right on the thing to choose whichever one she wants to talk about. I'll just read a few of them out. There is, let me see, there are huge numbers. I've got sports, music. Hang on, I need to bring this closer. My eyes are wrong. Begum Akhtar, as already mentioned. There is MS Shivalakshmi. Then there is, of course, Kiran Bedi. Then there is Hema Malini, Bachandri Pal. We'll get there.
We'll get all of them. You got Indira Gandhi.
Yeah, Indira Gandhi, Madhuri Dixit,
Yes.
PV Sindhu, Mary Kom, Saina Nehwal, and there are a few more I missed somewhere along the way. Lata Mangeshkar as well. Yeah, so there are quite a few. MS Shivalakshmi. So yes, there are a few in there. I can assure you. And why don't I let the yeah. Why don't you tell us a little bit of any of your favorites of the lot?
Mine? Yeah. Oh, all of them.
Hey, that's cheating.
No. Each book, each chapter is an inspiration.
Yeah, another question. But why don't we move to the other side of the aisle? There's a gentleman here who wants to ask a question. If you can get a mic to him, and then maybe to somebody at the back. Yeah.
Keeping on the woman, why didn't you choose a woman business icon?
Well, we had to choose true icons. And yes, I don't think there is a woman business icon, but it'll get very complicated if we try to fix everything into boxes. So, if we gave ourselves too many constraints, we wouldn't be able to do it. So, as it happens to be, the icons who are here, I think from the field of business are almost all men. In fact, all are men. And also do remember that there is a bigger bunching of women in more recent decades as social mores have changed. So if you go to the earlier phase, you'll get maybe singer like Lata Mangeshkar. I'm sure but if you take the earlier periods, particularly, it's much more difficult to find women in an area of particularly business. You'll get Indira Gandhi, maybe, but there are many fields where you won't find women. But more recently, you will find lots, like PV Sindhu, Saina Nehwal is also there, and so on. So the gender mix does change as you go into the later years. Not surprisingly, because as the changing mores happen. Yeah. So can I have any more questions from this side? Otherwise, I will move. There is one out there. Arjun. Yeah. Back, and then we'll go back here. We'll have. Yeah. You can. Somebody pass the mic, and then we'll have a couple more questions here before we bring it to a close.
Thank you. For all of you, did you have any options about choosing people? You've written, of course, as the text very clearly says, who inspired the country, individuals. But anybody, and most of them are Indians, all of them.
By definition, yeah.
as outside India who are not Indian citizens, who have never been Indian citizens, and yet have inspired the country?
No, so we were quite clear that they had to be Indians because this is about 75 years of Indian independence. So they had to be Indian citizens. Yes, there are people outside India who inspired India, or even people of Indian origin. But we were clear that this is about ultimately about India as the Republic of India, the country that became free in 1947. So this is not about people who inspired India. This is about iconic Indians. It's about us. So I think there was never any real question about having a non-Indian. Not to suggest that non-Indians have not contributed to India, as my friend Niladri here was talking about the way Japan, for example, has both been inspired by India, but has also inspired India in multiple ways. And let me say, if I had written, I have written, by the way, in another book of mine called The Indian Renaissance, about how Japan, for example, had a major impact on post-independence India. Of course, people knows about pre-independence India, Netaji, Rash Bihari Bose, and so on. But post-independence India, I think one of the great turning points in Indian socio-economic life is actually the introduction of the Maruti 800. In fact, I remember vividly, one of the vivid memories of my teenage years is seeing that first red-colored Maruti 800. It was absolutely a turning point, and for at least for a large part of my generation, I can say that was a real, a proper modern car. Wow. And so this is something that yes, the rest of the world has indeed influenced us, but this book is not about that. Any other questions from this side? There is somebody there. By the way, Mr. Bhargav is part of the book. Yes.
I don't have a question. I have a small suggestion, Rajesh sir. When you introduce a soldier, you put his rank. Because, I never heard the Singh. And I got a shock of my life, who's suddenly become an iconic Indian. Thank you.
Well, to be fair to him, the question was, he's now a captain. Do we call him by his rank today or by the rank that he had then?
And he's an honorary captain.
He's an honorary captain. But these are about icons, and I think it's not so much about their military rank, even if they have got that as a military person. Any other person? Any other person that Neetu had a question? Yes. Yeah, you can have a mic. We'll get you one.
So I know, is this working? Yeah. So fast forward 25 years, right? What does your research reveal where the next pocket of inspiration as as a student of Maslow, where are we going? And where's the next pocket of inspiration going to come from? The average age of your icons here is, I'm guessing, I'm spitballing here, but probably 60s, 70s. What are we talking about 25 years from now? Mutually exclusive. Don't repeat these icons.
Okay, so we'll go down here and maybe we can come up with. Okay, I mean, just to get going on this, if I had to guess who would be the icons, by the way, some of them are probably already around and they are probably even well known. They would probably be maybe setting up startups today that are already in existence or even have become large companies like Oyo, for example. In 25 years, he might be somebody you may think about or as somebody to put in the book. There may be political leaders who are today making their way through some panchayat somewhere, or maybe even become a chief minister, but in 10, 15 years' time will become a prime minister. They may be, but of course, there may be sports persons who have not even been born. Remember, the Olympic gold medal in 25 years' time may not even have been born today. So it's really difficult to guess this. But so I don't know, and there may be fields of study that do not exist today, so i.e. professions that we do not think of today. So very difficult question, good one, but I really wouldn't know how to answer this. But I'm going to let Niladri, who has been sitting here very quietly, to try and guess. Who would you guess from today who might be in the book from 25 years from now?
Okay. Oh, let him answer it his way.
Yeah, so good question. A football World Cup is coming up, right? In 2 months' time. I would love coming up yeah, there is football market going on now, but the male whatever, the senior football World Cup, which is going to be held in Qatar, is coming up in 2 months. Within 25 years, I hope we have an Indian captain who's born or not born, I don't care, whom we can cheer at that World Cup. So that would be a great icon for me. Um, Various fields of life, a lot of people who would have been born, who already running unicorns, perhaps in business, in sports, in social service. There are a lot of people doing a lot of good work across India. They'll come up, and I hope Sanjeev writes a book on icons below a certain age, not above. So let's say the young icons or the young 75 icons. That could be his next book, perhaps. While me and he, the Drupa person, we can collaborate on a book on the icons they left out.
You see how cleverly Niladri exempted me from this. Talking young icons and young and this young and that young. Yeah. I understand.
So let me say that there are some young people here. They may not, by the way, they may not be young today, but many of them did become icons when they because they're sports stars here, of course, who reached their iconic status as sports persons. We have talked about Yogendra Singh Yadav, who got his Param Vir Chakra when he was only 17 or 18 years old. So there are young people who got it, but since we are dealing with 75 years today, those iconic status did not get, many of them may not be today young people, although some are still. I mean, there is Neeraj Chopra is there. So he is, I think, still below 25, if I'm not mistaken. So why don't I ask Dr. Bedi for her guess on this?
I think your book has triggered options plenty. Plenty of options. You can have upcoming icons. You can have women icons. You can industry icons. You can non-resident Indian icons, author icons. You can categorize. I think this book can be a whole series. And each one of them get into YouTubes and they become documentaries. Yeah. So I think it triggers a lot of thinking. It can be musicians. You know what the book analysis shows you, what you've got at the moment. It might change as we go through. I categorized as I read the book. Of these 75, the leads are 13 musicians. Music, art, and culture, 13. That's the highest number. Followed by people in sports, 12. Then you have 13 musicians, 3 industries. So you were talking about industries, they were chosen 3. You can guess the 3. You've got to read the book for that. Then you have 11 defense. All these iconic brave men and women, men, so far men in the armed forces, all forces. Then you have 8 politicians, 12 sports, 3 industry, 13 musicians, and 3 in the another area, which I can't read my own English, my own writing. So this is how it is. Philanthropy, you got only 1. I'm not going to mention the name. Philanthropy, only 1. So there's a long way to go. There's great scope. All these areas actually are iconic. You can develop more and have a series. And I think India needs that series. I think it's a trigger of a great thought and a whole series. Who does it? That's for you to choose or decide. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, let me clarify, though. There are some people here who may be from business but are here for reasons other than business. For example, Nandan Nilekani. He is not here as a businessman, but because he set up Aadhaar. Narayan Murthy is here for setting up Infosys. So, we were very strict about not allowing 2 people for the same act. So if somebody asks you why are both of them there, well, Narayan Murthy, because Nandan Nilekani here is for a different reason. So there are some other things like that as well. So why don't I ask 2 for media. 4 social sciences, 2 for environment. But many of these people have contributions in different fields. There is only one father-daughter combination, Nehru and Indira Gandhi, and 2 brothers,
R.K. Narayan and R.K. Lakshman. So, you know, things like that. Professor Lal, I know you have to leave, but since this is the last question, why don't I let you answer something on this as well?
You know, I would think otherwise. I would say, you've created a book, Iconic Indians. Create another book saying something else, but leave the word iconic out of it. You could say the upcoming generation or the generation, whatever you want, whatever name you want to give, because I don't know whether you'd like to make it another iconic somebody else, and then what? Give it another name and bring up those people up who perhaps have been missed out over here. And I mean, whatever you want to do. Just a thought.
So I have a question there.
So we will have to, why don't we have this conversation after this? But okay, why don't you ask the question? And
it's a question for both of you,
Okay.
actually. So, you know, when I was going through the list, I saw that, you know, and thank you so much, Dr. Bedi, for that bifurcation or that breakdown on the segments or fields from where the names are coming. There are no lawyers over here. Now, I'm not saying that they should be there. I'm not saying they should be there, but just to get an insight into, you know, the dynamics of your method or your discussion of choosing, I'll throw two names and I'm asking both of you, which one would you choose? One is Justice H.R. Khanna, who authored the Keshwanand Bharti judgment and because of whom possibly we sit here today and discuss this so freely. And the second is Nani Palkhiwala, who argued that case.
Okay.
So which one would you,
So-
with both of you? I mean,
So-
this question is to both of you.
So let me say, if it makes you feel any better, no economists are also there. But there is actually one lawyer, B.R. Ambedkar. He's here for writing the Constitution. He wrote the Constitution, or rather he chaired the committee that wrote the Constitution. And so he is there. So as it happens to be, he is also an economist. People don't know that. He has a doctorate from LSE in economics, but he's not here as an economist. He's here as a lawyer. So let me just defend myself on that. But answering that question, if Rajesh, you want to answer that on the choice between the two, and then we can close this because I think, you know.
No, I think both the names are eminent, but since now this is more of an academic exercise, so so I'm safe in taking sides, and I would choose Justice H.R. Khanna for the simple reason that a lawyer, and I mean no disrespect to a lawyer, but a lawyer fights for his brief, right? So the brief may be, his client may be right, his client may be wrong, whatever. But the judgment has an impact beyond what a lawyer argues. That judgment has an impact on other cases as well, and also on the thinking of the legal fraternity in terms of judging cases. I think Justice Khanna's example that you gave, the Keshwananda Bharti case, just makes him stand apart. See, Keshwananda Bharti case became famous not, I mean, people talk of Keshwananda Bharti, but it was not, it went so much more beyond Keshwananda Bharati. It was not Keshwananda Bharati or the benefits he derived or the non-benefits he got after the case. I mean, the impact was much more, and it remains still today. So yes, I would give it to the judge who gave the verdict in the Keshwananda Bharti case. Yes.
Thank you. I think we'll have to bring this to a close. May I ask the MC to bring it to a close? By the way, Rajesh and I are still around, so we're happy to sign books if any of you wish to do that. And I'm sure there's some drinks and dinner also. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. It's a time to sign off now. So on behalf of SECO and Rupa Publications India, I would like to thank Dr. Bedi and Mr. Rajesh Lal for being here with us, for taking out your precious time. Also, I would like to thank each one of you for marking your presence over here and making this launch even more special. The copies of the book are available for the sale at the back, and Mr. Sanyal and Mr. Singh would be happy to sign them for you. So thank you so much, everyone. Yes, and you don't have to leave before you have the dinner, and the bar is also open, so please help yourself. Thank you so much for marking your presence, and it was my honor to be here with you for hosting Iconic India here. And This is a sign out. This was Parul Nagpal, and we are signing out. Goodbye and good night.